how's your juke treating you?
That was great. My life has been wonderful recently.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been climbing up a mountain for some time, and in the past few weeks, arrived at a plateau.
What mountain were you climbing up? Where did
It's
you
just
go?
a metaphorical mountain.
I know, but where did you go? Where did the mountain take you?
It took me to a beautiful place where I can look back on my progress and feel happy and contented and proud of myself for all the progress that I've made.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
What progress?
It's just emotional progress,
Ah!
spiritual progress.
Love that.
Social progress.
I love these things.
Yeah, so I'm feeling fantastic. And then
Okay.
I listened to a few different podcasts, including this one.
Uh-huh.
And there's an ad that comes up on all of these different podcasts, and it goes, in a world of slot wheels and blackjack deals.
Fucking hate it.
You know that one?
Yes.
It depresses me every time I hear it.
My body like caves in on itself every time one of the FanDuel Casino
or Casino. Fucking choose a better name for your. You never heard of?
No.
I'm gonna bleep this out when I edit this one because I don't want to get them any more airtime than they deserve.
Good.
Which is none. Because the idea of living in a world of slot wheels and blackjack deals depresses me deeply.
Really depressing.
Yeah, I'm like, is that really the world that we live in?
It is. Unfortunately.
That
every time I go
me.
by a casino, I am floored by the amount of cars that are there.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, people buying nothing.
I don't get it. I like money too much to want to... And I'm too competitive, so whenever I lose, I feel really shitty about myself.
So watch our first sponsor be Casino.
No, we'll not let it happen.
They got Ryan Seacrest to come on and do the most half-hearted
Well, Ryan
ad.
Seacrest has nothing else to do now.
Yeah, he's like...
What does he have?
I remember specifically what he says. He's like, I like business, but I like to play too. And when I like to play, I go to Casino.
Oh my
and it's
gosh.
like, fucking stop, Ryan.
Shut the fuck up.
Preserve some of your dignity. Please,
No.
I'm begging you.
He's selling it all.
So, even though I've been in such a wonderful mood,
Yes.
I feel I'm gonna have to keep bleeping all
Oh,
this.
sorry. I won't say it again.
Even though I've been in a wonderful mood,
Okay.
whenever I hear that, it's like a punch to the gut of my soul.
The gut of your soul. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm great. I'm just chilling. David and I are going to Boston and Salem this weekend, actually.
Exciting, yeah.
Yes, I'm very excited. I have planned the trip entirely, mostly around Atlas Obscura, so I'm very excited for that.
What is Atlas Obscura?
What's Atlas Obscura?
What's Atlas Obscura?
Oh, Dylan. It's this website where basically, like...
Take two? You want another read on that one?
It's this website.
Yeah.
And basically, if you wanted to travel somewhere, you can type in a location and it'll tell you, like, some weird shit to do there. Like, it's not just for, like, travel, but, like...
Okay.
I guess it is, kind of. If you want to, like, visit something, like, we could type in Harrisburg, PA, and the woman who was buried from the spontaneous combustion might show up.
Wow.
Like, it's just a bunch of really cool stuff like that.
They buried her ashes?
Yeah.
You think they could just skip the cremation and just put her in a damn urn, but...
Well, there were some bones, and I think there was a foot left over
Oh. Well,
from that episode.
you can bronze it.
Yeah. Oh.
Like a baby shoe.
Or you hollow it out, and that is the urn.
Creative.
Honestly.
Very creative.
Ideas.
Okay.
I might TM.
Tim.
We got this trademarked. It's our business idea.
You could be like a mortuary assistant or like a coroner.
You know, I probably would do
Funeral
best
director.
in that way. Genuinely. I wanted to be an OBGYN for a little bit.
I had no idea. Well,
Yeah, I love all of that stuff, but I would know I would never be able to, like, separate myself if things go wrong, which they do sometimes,
Yes.
and I just could not handle that. So if they're already dead, it's tragic and it's hard,
Sure.
but I'd be helping the family to cope with that.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it's like I'd want to like do that kind of service, you know? Like I can't do anything about it that it is done, but what I can do is help them to feel comfort.
That makes a lot of sense. And of course, you're very comfortable around dead bodies.
I am.
All
Naturally.
I don't know if that's true or not.
I don't know either. I haven't been around a dead body.
Ever?
Well, no, it's not. That's a lie. I've been around lots of funerals.
Okay. How
That's
many funerals? Recently?
Not recently, but in my entire life, probably more than I'd like to.
Yeah, I think that's true of everyone in a
Yeah.
way. But have you ever been to like an open casket funeral?
That's like all of the funerals that
All
I've
of
been to. Yeah.
Nice.
Touch them.
Oh?
Yeah.
Do you touch the person in the casket?
Yeah.
Like their face and their hands?
You can
their
if you
cold
want.
hands? You
They're cold
can't.
hands.
You literally are not allowed to.
What do you mean?
What? Is this?
What do you mean you're not allowed to? Are you serious?
I think it's pretty taboo to touch the dead body.
No, you can.
Am I wrong?
No, you're wrong.
Oh man, I've really missed out.
You're wrong. One of the funerals I went to, speaking of gambling, this guy loved to gamble, and so he had like a poker chip between his knuckle. But like people would like put things in his hand, like cards and stuff. My great grandmother, when she passed away, my sister and I held her hand the entire time.
Wow.
You never heard of that?
No.
Really?
I always thought it was kind of like a kind of cake situation where
Cake?
where you put all the little like wooden rods in the cake to keep it upright.
Oh.
So I figured they did that more or less with the body.
They do.
So like if you grab their hand and it squishes and a whole bunch of little rods come out, that's going to be pretty that's going to be disturbing.
They don't put rods in the hands. They only put rods in like the important
cake,
structural thing. They only put the rods in the important You're not gonna, if you slice a piece of cake, you're not gonna get toothpicks in the slice, you know? It's only just for the main structure.
Speaking of which, that reminds me of something.
Okay.
I know that it's somewhat popular for people to smash someone's face into a cake for like wedding shit.
Yeah.
And that has resulted in a few injuries, one of which was fatal, in which a wooden rod supporting the cake went through the eye of the bride or groom.
Oh my gosh.
Killing them instantly.
What the fuck? When did you hear that? Was it recent?
I don't know if it was recent, but I know that it happened.
How do you know?
Because it happened to me. My wife
Your wife
died.
That's why Dylan is single.
That's why I never smash my girlfriend or wife's face into cakes anymore.
Yeah, anymore.
Anymore, no.
He
Not
learned
after
his
that.
lesson. Wait, is that real?
Yes.
Where did you hear that?
I don't remember.
It's gonna bother me. I need to know exactly where that came from.
I don't remember.
I
but
believe
I know that
that.
it happened.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe that very much so. Have you seen those like the dial rods they use for cakes?
Yeah.
They're sharp as hell.
Yeah.
Literally lobotomizing somebody.
Exactly. And that's a hell of a segue. But before we get into that, my name is Dylan.
My name is Madison, and this
is My Existential Crisis, the podcast where we talk about everything.
I almost did the beach too sandy one.
Just no allegiance whatsoever to this podcast.
None. The podcast where we talk about all the things that make us question our entire sense of self.
So
yeah.
Lobotomizing.
Lobotomizing.
Tell me about it.
Was that intended?
Was it?
Segue? The Sagoo? Maybe?
As it's pronounced?
The Sagoo. Well, if it wasn't, it was a sure damn good coinky-dink, because today we're going to be talking about lobotomy, as teased in the last episode.
Yes.
Today we're going to be talking about maybe the most forgotten of all the Kennedys, Rosemary Kennedy.
Yes.
Yes. And just to start out, that was a weird...
No,
Yes.
Yes. Yes, tell me more. No, I know enough about it to feel a little gross at the idea of it, but learning more about it is certainly interesting.
Yeah.
So, Rosemary Kennedy was
Oh, before I get into that,
Sure.
my sources, or else I will forget. On Wikipedia, the JFK Library, nps.gov, all that's interesting, and this YouTube channel by a professor named... Oh, it's gonna play it. It's private. I just watched this yesterday. It says the video is private.
Your credibility is shot.
Wait a minute.
Your sources are shit. Oh my god. That's so
this
embarrassing.
Is so weird. Okay, anyway. Well, it was a YouTube channel by a doctor, and he does a lot of, like, history stuff. Anyway. So, Rosemary Kennedy, she was born as Rosemary Kennedy, but she goes by Rosemary.
Oh, that's an improvement.
Yes, I agree. She was the eldest daughter and third born of the Kennedy clan. Yes, that Kennedy clan, with her brothers being JFK, Robert F. Kennedy, and Ted Kennedy. Ted.
Oh, got the short end of the stick there.
You did. Got a cool
short
name,
end of the cake stick.
A cool monitor like JFK, and then you've got Ted.
TFK. Not the same.
Not the same at all. So Rosemary's father was named Joe Sr., and he was a businessman. His wife, Rose, was a philanthropist and socialite, and they lived like the American version of a royal family. They had 9 children, 3 of whom went into politics, the ones that I had just mentioned. And Rosemary was born on September 13th, 1918, in her parents' home. But due to the Spanish flu outbreak at the time, the doctor was unavailable at the time of her birth. So the nurse ordered her mother to keep her legs closed to hold the baby in until the doctor could arrive.
If only you could be there as an OBGYN.
Honestly, I feel like without OBGYN practice, I could probably do a better job.
Just hold your legs together.
Yeah. It was rumored that the nurse went as far as to push the baby back into the birth canal as she was coming out. Which forced Rosemary's head to stay within the birth canal for 2 hours, causing hypoxia and cutting off crucial oxygen, which caused developmental delays as she grew older.
Yeah.
As she continued to grow, her parents noticed that she had begun to miss basic developmental milestones, such as at 2 years old, she had a hard time sitting up, crawling, and learning to walk. So she wasn't even at the, when you're walking to you're talking. She was 2 years old, and she was having a hard time crawling and sitting up, which is infant. Mm-hmm. Her lack of inclusion into, like, the family life, because she was a little bit different, they would say that it would lead to fits, quote unquote, which were later found out to be seizures or just episodes related to her mental illness. Mm-hmm. At first, she went to public schools, but after having difficulty with the other children, trying to keep up with them, having to repeat grades, she was kept at home to study. Rose's mother called her an affectionate, warmly responsive, and loving girl. She was so willing to try to do her best, so appreciative of attention and compliments, and so hopeful of deserving them, which is the saddest thing I think I've ever heard, considering, like, knowing you're coming from the Kennedys, like, your family are bigwigs, and all she wants is, like, it's not that she, like, loves attention, but, like, she wants to be appreciated, and, like, she wants to, like, genuinely have earned those compliments, which just feels so heartbreaking.
Truly.
Anyway, as an important note, this was around the time when sterilization, banishment, and even execution of those with intellectual and developmental disabilities was normal. This is pre-World War II. Mm-hmm. Hitler was on the rise. We know that this rhetoric was popularized by him and encouraged as such. And interestingly enough, her brother Joe Jr. spent a year in Europe and wrote to her father, Joe Sr., about the sterilization that was happening of the mentally ill and disabled. And he said that it was a good thing and that it would do away with many of the disgusting specimens of men that inhabit this earth. That is a direct quote.
All right.
So,
did not age well?
No. And that's the kind of world that we're living in, is like part of, to preface. And that's the kind of family that we're living in.
And was that like a widely, I know in that part of Europe at the time, among that like particular group, that was a popular idea. Do you know if that was like a more widely accepted idea back then as well?
In the U.S., you mean?
Yeah.
I think it was. I don't think it was quite to the extreme, but like, I mean, the thought of anybody who was mental ill or like had any kind of ailment of like your mind was very, very heavily like taboo. You didn't speak about it. Like, they are the undesirables, untouchables of the world. So like, I don't believe the rhetoric kind of went as far. I think it was more of like a quieter rhetoric, but it wasn't something that was uncommon to us.
Yeah.
It was just kind of being more spread around in Europe.
And, you know, the states weren't exactly blameless as well. I know there was a lot of idea sharing. Even the Nazi Party took a lot of inspiration from the Jim Crow laws.
Yeah, for sure.
In the U.S. to structure their framework for, like, segregation. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't... Placing that quote-unquote blame in Europe is not the intention. The ideas were definitely still circulating here as well. Yeah.
I mean, it's like with anything, you know, you give someone like Hitler a platform and he's sharing his views, it makes more people feel free and comfortable to come out of the woodwork and express those things.
Certainly. I mean, we see that today as well.
Exactly. So anyway, just a little bit of background for where we're at in history, and, you know, especially in a family of her status, being anything less than perfect is very not okay. It is implied that she had a developmental disability. However, there's honestly question about the extent of it. Obviously, she was missing milestones and stuff, but her mother never confided in her friends about, you know, her daughter. She pretended that she was developing normally, to the point where relatives other than the immediate family knew nothing about her disability. They thought that she was developing just fine. So again, just a reminder, the public scrutiny that the Kennedys were living up to. They also, because of the time, had no one to, like, learn from or get advice from, which again, I'm not trying to paint any of this as an excuse, but it's just to be mindful that it was such a different time in history.
Right.
There was, you know, even doctors that you would turn to, you don't talk about it. It's the professionals that you're supposed to go to, you aren't able to get advice from for these things. Despite the help of tutors, Rosemary had trouble learning to read and write, and at the age of 11, she was sent to a Pennsylvania boarding school for people with intellectual disabilities. At 16, she was then sent to the Sacred Heart Convent in Rhode Island, where she was educated separately from the other girls all day through the instruction of 2 nuns and a special ed teacher. And for their effort, the Kennedys generously donated a tennis court.
Oh. Okay.
My eyes, you couldn't see it, but my eyes rolled to the back of my head. 16, her writing, reading, spelling, counting skills were reported to be at about like a 4th grade level, which is 9 to 10 years old. Her brother John would accompany her to social events, John F. Kennedy, and, you know, be her chaperone so that she could appear as quote unquote normal as possible for the struggles that she had.
Yeah.
He didn't want her to feel different from the other women, which I think was very touching.
That is kind.
It is very kind. The variety of schools she was bounced around to posed for additional hardships. She would get comfortable in one place, then immediately switch to another if she, you know, started getting a little too comfortable there. In terms of, you know, her home life, she didn't read a lot of books. It was said that she enjoyed Winnie the Pooh. Her diaries were later published after her death, and they were talked about, like, her outings to the opera. Like, it was really, like, sweet. It was.
You know, I don't love that her diaries were published.
Yeah,
that seems a little invasive.
I agree. I think it was really helpful, though, to later understand, from what we learned from her diaries, later learn the extent of her disability, and, like, from how her father covered it up to, like, what he implied to, like, actually how she was. So it's kind of like supporting evidence for how fucked up this was.
Yeah.
I guess. Not that it wouldn't be fucked up otherwise, but
right.
You know. So she was talking about, like, doing typical teenage socialite things, like being a debutante, dress fittings, like going to all these really high status events and concerts and dances that other people would go to. The Kennedy siblings, again, were very competitive, and their parents demanded a lot from them. This would also cause more frustration for Rosemary, who felt like that she couldn't live up to the accomplishments of her siblings. The others did their best to include her, but with very careful and leering supervision by her father. So an example of like some of the things that they did. They went to the White House together. This was before the politics. They watched the coronation of Pope Pius VII. They attended like other really big-wig international engagements.
Oh, Pius VII.
Yeah.
They got to ride in the seventh time.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So in 1938, the Kennedys lived in London while Joan Sr. served as the U.S. ambassador to the UK. Rosemary was presented as an official debutante to King George the... Wait, is an X? 10. Fuck.
Man,
Pope Pius XII.
They're just churning out these fuckers.
Yeah.
Like, stop. Just, like, give someone a new name, you know?
No, it's tradition. Sorry.
Right,
Pope Pius XII.
12.
I misread that. And King George the Sixth.
They must have been really into, like... Pope Pius the 12th?
12.
Wow.
Why?
Wow. They're just like mass manufacturing these Pope
They
Piuses.
They are.
It's wholesale Pope Piuses.
Papayas. Wholesale papayas.
Oh, wonderful.
So Rosemary was presented as an official debutante to King George the Sixth and Queen Elizabeth at Buckingham Palace along with her sister. She spent hours practicing the complicated royal curtsy, but at the event she tripped and nearly fell.
Oh.
The incident was never discussed by her parents, and her debut was always considered a triumph. The crowd was polite enough to, like, not give notice to it.
So she didn't even fall. She nearly fell.
She nearly fell.
And that was a black stain on this particular event.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Incredible.
Her little stumble and near fall was enough to be noted as history.
You know, sometimes you can turn it into something kind of fun. Like a little curtsy or a little dance. If you stumble, fall, just lean into it.
Just lean into it.
Yeah.
Advice from Dylan, guys. If you stumble or fall, even if it's in front of the royal family, even if you're a part of the Kennedy clan, you know, just lean into it.
Yeah.
Do a somersault.
Do a somersault. Do a barrel roll. Whenever I fall or trip, I always say to people, I'm just practicing a new dance move. And that's usually enough to get a laugh, which is nice.
That's actually really smart, considering all the times that I trip or whatnot. I might have to try that.
And then there's dead silence.
Yeah. I'm just trying a new dance move, guys. And then there's just crickets. Yeah. And then I cry.
Oh my God. Yeah, holy shit. Anyway.
Still keeping with this ruse of, like, everything's fine, Rosemary's parents told the magazine Women's Day that she was studying to become a kindergarten teacher. They told the magazine Parents that she had an interest in social work, but she had a secret longing for the stage. And the Boston Globe actually requested an interview with her, but her response was pre-written and rehearsed by her father's assistant. So she said something along the lines of, "I've always had serious tastes and understand life is not given to us just for enjoyment. For some time past, I've been studying the well-known psychological method of Dr. Maria Montessori, and I got my degree in teaching last year."
Oh. Of the Montessori method?
Yes.
Interesting.
Of the Montessori method.
Montessori school?
Yes.
I never went to one, so I don't know.
Yes. In reality, she did not get her degree in teaching. She was attending the Montessori school as a student, not as a graduate. In this care, though, she was flourishing. So, like, it was doing really, really well for her. Like, she was free of, like, the social and societal pressures. Like, she had more independence to do what she wanted to do. And, like, everyone said, like, how well she was doing there.
Yeah.
However, she had to go back to the U.S. with her family once the war started.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever she went back, she started to decline a little bit. According to her sister Eunice, she was about 22 years old when they returned to the U.S., and she became increasingly irritable and difficult.
Eunice.
That's an original name, too. That's on a...
I hate that. Eunice. Eunice? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Anyway, please continue.
Yeah. So she couldn't find a similar positive and nurturing environment in the U.S. She was ripped from this very calm, positive schooling with zero pressure, right back into the throes of competition with her siblings. She wasn't listened to. She wasn't understood. She wasn't given independence. So, I mean, I'd be frustrated too. I'd be pretty cranky.
An understatement.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be pretty cranky.
I'd be pretty cranky. She was said to experience convulsions, fly into violent rages, during which she would hit and injure others. She was expelled from a summer camp in Massachusetts and only stayed at a boarding school for a few months until she was finally sent to another convent school in D.C. Keep in mind, she's 22 now, so she is technically an adult. She's seeing her siblings be adults and be independent, and her mind is that of, I think, like a 14 to 16-year-old. So she is naive and underdeveloped in that way. Mm-hmm. But she is old enough to, like, want her freedom and independence. I mean, like, if you're 14, 16-year-old, you wanted your freedom and independence. Yeah. And she's technically of age to do that. Mm-hmm. So, you know, obviously there's concerns there, but the family just wanted to keep her in their control and under wraps.
That's difficult because 14 or 16-year-old shouldn't necessarily have their independence.
Exactly.
But if you're of age to have your independence, that becomes a kind of a conflict.
It does.
So,
it does.
Which is not easily resolved.
No, and I think that at the very least a balance would have been healthy.
Mm-hmm.
For her, there was no balance. Like in the Montessori school, she had independence. Like, I don't know a ton about the Montessori method of teaching, but I know that it's very independence-based in terms of, like, you know, you learn everyday tasks, you work with yourself. Like, you don't need to do certain things. Whereas in this case, she was just, like, tucked away in a closet and just left there. So, to rebel, she began sneaking out of school in the middle of the night, went to bars, would meet strange men, went home with them. She would be found, like, staggering in the streets at, like, 2 a.m. The nuns were worried that she might be pursuing sexual partners, could contract STDs, become pregnant. Her family was afraid that she'd be taken advantage of or do something to embarrass them. In reality, these might have also been sleepwalking episodes, which are more common in those with disabilities and mental illnesses. But we don't actually know. So maybe a little bit of both. Maybe it was just her sneaking out. We don't know.
Have you ever sleptwalked?
I have never sleptwalked.
Oh.
Have you?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, it is actually kind of a scary story.
That sounds terrifying.
Well, the situation itself is, like, especially terrifying.
Really? Okay.
Because it was a snowy night, and I was probably like 8 or 9 or 10 years old. I walked down the stairs, sleepwalking. I opened the front door, walked outside, and my parents found me just standing in the snowy yard.
Oh my gosh.
Because I was waiting.
Ew.
For them.
Oh.
To come.
Ew.
No, but the story's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, please.
That's terrifying, though.
Yeah, it's very terrifying.
Oh my gosh. How long were you out there?
Hours. Days.
Days.
Anyway, sometimes I feel like I'm still out there.
Yeah, like an icicle dripping from your nose.
Yeah, from both.
Yeah.
I look like a fucking Morris. Yeah, please continue. I'm begging you.
Especially at this time, her brothers were pursuing political careers now. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just the being a socialite thing. It was now them actually trying to protect their image to the public. Still not cool. But at the age of 23, doctors told Rosemary's father that a lobotomy would help to calm her mood swings and stop the occasional outbursts. Her father decided that she would undergo the procedure. However, he did not inform his wife of the decision until after it was completed.
What a man.
Yes.
Was there any... Because, I mean, it's not a... Has anyone ever successfully, after a lobotomy, been improved at all?
I think some have, genuinely. But I think not in the way that we see improved now. I think improved for that time as being, like... Passive. Yeah,
docile.
I think that that's what their definition of improved was. So he was informed about the risk. He was informed of both the quote-unquote successes and the many, many failures of the procedure. And for those of you who might not know, just as a quick little lesson, a lobotomy is where they take something like an ice pick and they place it into your eye socket near your tear duct, and they take a small little mallet and, like, use it to hammer into your brain slowly. They might wiggle it around, they might cause an incision, but it's going into your brain.
Yeah.
She had the procedure done in November of 1941. Dr. James Watts was one of the doctors who carried out the procedure, and he described it as follows. After Rosemary was mildly sedated, we went through the top of her head. I think she was awake. She was absolutely awake. I think is
It's doing a lot of work there. The word think.
Yeah. She was awake because she was talking to them.
Oh.
Yes. So she felt everything. Yes. She had a mild tranquilizer to calm her down.
Yeah.
And then she had a surgical incision in the brain through the skull. It was near the front, on both sides. We made a small incision, no more than an inch. The instrument looked like a butter knife. He swung it up and down to cut the brain tissue. We put the instrument inside. And then they would have Rosemary to, like, recite the Lord's Prayer or sing God Bless America and, like, maybe count to 5 to see, like, how lucid she was. And that was their way of, like, trying to estimate how deep to cut and how much more to do.
Oh, okay.
Based on how she responded.
Oh, I see.
But she suddenly stopped speaking and got very quiet and then incoherent. And that's when they knew something had gone wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I know that a lot of brain surgeries today are carried out when the patient is awake.
Yes.
Just for that same reason, to tell,
exactly.
If they're responsive.
Exactly.
Doesn't make it any less horrifying.
It doesn't. And also, she was tranquilized, not numbed.
Yeah.
It was more like a calming pill, not an anesthetic.
Okay.
So she felt everything.
Well, the brain doesn't feel pain, so that's fine. I mean, it's not fine, obviously,
it's
but
fine.
But it's that's pretty fucking brutal.
Yeah. Watts said that in his opinion, Rosemary did not have an intellectual disability, but was rather a form of depressive.
Oh.
And in a review of all the papers written by the 2 doctors who did the procedure, this confirmed what Watts believed. All of the other patients the 2 doctors lobotomized were diagnosed as having some form of mental disorder, not mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I don't know if it makes it any better, but, like, she basically didn't qualify for the procedure.
It would be nice to know that before the procedure was carried out.
Yeah, you'd think. And then be like, you know what? I don't think that she was mentally ill. Oh, well. Or mentally disabled. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Just mentally ill. Just depressive. That's fine.
Holy shit. It's just, I don't know. A family like the Kennedys, like, you would think that they would have more resources to sort of, I don't know, maybe get better professional advice.
You'd think, but I think for Joe at this point, I think he just wanted a quick and easy solution, and he didn't want to have to deal with it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he really cared about Rosemary. That's a far-fetched opinion of mine, but I think it'll be kind of evident later on that he did not really care for Rosemary. One of the doctors who was involved when the procedure was actually the one to popularize it and made it mainstream in the medical literature. Bertram S. Brown. He was the director of the National Institute of Mental Health, and he was also an aide to President Kennedy, said that Rosemary's father referred to his daughter as, quote, mentally retarded rather than mentally ill in order to protect John's reputation for a presidential run. In his mind, being mentally disabled was better than having a mental illness. Because at least, not that mental illness is like a choice, but it seems like a better excuse, I guess, for maybe like erratic behavior, especially back in the day like this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if a woman is hysteric, she would be placed in a mental institution. But if she was actually mentally disabled, she'd still be placed in a mental institution. But it just felt better, I guess, at that time.
Okay.
Even though it's not.
Right.
It's not. But.
Right.
The Kennedy aide. Oh, sorry.
Just like,
I'm sorry.
Right back into it.
The Kennedy aide also claimed that the family's lack of support for mental illness is part of a lifelong family denial of what was really going on. Mm-hmm. So there was that as well. It was very quickly apparent that the procedure had caused immense harm. Rosemary's mental capacity diminished to that of a 2-year-old. She could no longer walk or speak intelligibly. She was incoherent. Immediately after the procedure, she was institutionalized. She initially lived for several years in a private psychiatric hospital above New York City, but then she was relocated to Wisconsin, where she would spend the rest of her life on the grounds of St. Coletta School for Exceptional Children. One of the leaders in the Catholic Church recommended to Joe Sr. about this place, so he had an entire section built for her. The nuns called it the Kennedy Cottage.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was cared for 2 nuns along with a student and a ceramics teacher where she could actually do things. She was given a car that could be used to take her on rides and a dog that she could use to take on walks. Due to her condition, the Kennedys separated her as far as possible from the family, literally thousands of miles away. Her mother didn't visit for 20 years and her father did not visit at all.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I understand what you mean now when
Yeah.
you said that he just didn't care.
No. Her condition and procedure were so secretive that her siblings didn't even know it had happened.
Oh.
It was hidden for 20 years from the family, and they explained her absence by saying she was reclusive. They used this excuse during the family's campaign bids, and it wasn't until after 1961, when John had been elected president, that he spoke on her disappearance. Instead of mentioning the failed lobotomy, which he did not know about,
Mm-hmm.
he claimed that she was deemed mentally disabled, which is the story that everyone has thought this entire time.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't after Joe Kennedy Sr. had a stroke that the siblings were made aware of Rosemary's location.
Mm.
Eunice revealed her condition publicly in 1962, but her lobotomy was not revealed as public knowledge until 1987.
Mm-hmm.
After the death of Joe Kennedy Sr. in 1969, the Kennedys gradually involved Rosemary into their lives again. She was taken to visit relatives in Florida, D.C., Massachusetts occasionally. By that time, she had learned to walk again, but did so with a limp. She never regained the ability to speak clearly, and her arm was paralyzed. Since learning of her whereabouts, Eunice developed an immense bond with her sister and had a lot of empathy for others who experienced similar intellectual challenges. And again, inspired by her sister, Eunice started a summer day camp in her own backyard for children and adults with intellectual disabilities. And this camp actually evolved into the Special Olympics.
Really?
Yes, which is now a global competition that involves 1.4 million athletes from 150 countries.
I had no idea that's how it started.
Yep.
Wow.
Because of Rosemary Kennedy. While in the Wisconsin care facility, a woman named Elizabeth, who knew her for about 30 years from visiting her own relatives, described her as loving visitors.
Mm-hmm.
She loved parties and food. She would hold on to my hand sometimes. She loved to shuffle greeting cards. She would keep colorful greeting cards and gaze at them that kept her happy. If we told her we brought a box of candy, her eyes would light up. She loved music. Eventually, the Kennedys brought her an electric piano, and while she couldn't play on it, she would make music in her own way. And although she didn't communicate clearly at times, she communicated with us in the way that she could. And then she recalled the first time that she did hear her speak clearly, and it was kind of like the first time that they realized how much she was perceiving and understanding. So they were on their way, just on a ride out from the place that she was staying, and she was suddenly reading billboards and saying simple things like Morton's Diary. And they were so proud of her. They threw her a little party whenever they got back. She was really proud of herself. She was very aware of that milestone.
Mm.
Which also makes me think how much did she know, Yeah. I don't know. She did eventually die of natural causes in 2005 after spending 60 years in her Kennedy cottage in Wisconsin. Her surviving siblings were by her side, and she was buried next to her parents in Hollywood Cemetery, which is... I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't like that.
Me neither. I'm glad that you made a noise, because I read that and I was like...
Doesn't seem right.
And it doesn't. I would rather her be buried up in Wisconsin with her friends who she made.
Right.
Not with people who shit all over her. That's just me, though. Eunice, her sister, said in her eulogy that Rosemary had left a legacy that was long and deep. Everyone loved her. Her nephew started the Best Buddies program. Hospitals, schools, other facilities named programs after her. John F. Kennedy passed legislation for people who were mentally disabled and other people in need like that. So she did have a very far reach across her family once they knew about her and where she was and what had happened to her. Mm-hmm. And as a little bit of lore, some people refer to Rosemary as the first incident of the Kennedy curse.
Right.
Do you believe in that?
I was thinking how the least valued member of that family, what was done to her would mirror what would happen to one of the more cherished members of the family, who was pretty brutally debrained by the CIA. Yeah. It does have a strange parallel to it.
It does. It really does. But
it's amazing how, with all of those disadvantages, she had such an impact on the world.
For real. Like, whenever I first learned that that's how the Special Olympics came to be, I was, like, floored. Like, that's incredible. And it makes me so sad because all of these resources that they had, all of this publicity that they had, they could have been doing... This is not to blame the children because they did not know. They were also children. But, like, the parents, like you said, like, they had so much access to resources. They could have done something, literally anything beyond disabling her for the rest of her life.
Yeah. What else is there to the Kennedy curse? Because I don't know too much about
the Kennedy curse.
Yeah.
JFK.
Mm-hmm. His brother was shot as well.
His brother was shot. I think there's been a long line of, like, cancer and, like, illness and stuff in that area. There is another story that I might cover someday. Martha Moxley involves a Kennedy in her death.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just...
You know, it reminds me of an episode of another podcast called Heavyweight.
Okay.
Where the host of the podcast, Jonathan Goldman, I believe his name is, goes to visit a childhood friend who he'd fallen out of contact with. And his friend was like, all of his life, he was just like a sour, bitter guy who was railing against the world for this and that. And his friend is on his deathbed and he's dying. And he says something that I remember and I think is very, I don't know, it's really stayed with me. He says, like, you think you can put all this hate and anger into the world and get away with it? I don't think you can, really.
No, I would agree with that.
Yeah. That was, I don't know, I thought of that as being a very powerful thing to say.
I agree. And, like, at the very least, like, not even, like, in a karma way per se, but, like, if you're focusing on, like, negativity your entire life, like, of course it's going to come back and eat you.
Yeah.
Like, you can't live that way.
Right.
In a healthy, productive way.
Yeah. You can't get away with it. It's sad. But yeah, what are some of your just like parting thoughts about that whole situation?
It makes me so sad. And like I'll post like before and after pictures too. Like Rosemary was just like a beautiful, bright young woman who had the world ahead of her, and she just had like a slight developmental disability. Like she could still do so much. She still had so much to give to the world. And I think it's a shame the way that she ended up giving to the world. Good things still came of it, but that doesn't mean that it was good that it happened.
Right.
I think that she could have done good things, and her family could have done good things in that same nature without the tragedy.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah.
Really makes you think.
It does.
Well, thank you so much for that incredible story.
Yeah, of course. Sorry for bringing it down in a different way.
I mean, this, like we said, this is a true crime / oddity podcast.
Yeah.
It's not a happy crime pod.
Lucky,
yeah.
Happy.
What I'm going to talk about is kind of dark as well.
Okay, I'm here for it.
But before we get into that, I've been so excited.
I know.
To do this one because Oh my god, it's so fucking... It's very interesting. Now, I picked today's topic for one simple reason.
Okay.
I didn't have any other choice.
Oh.
I was always going to choose this topic for our 39th episode.
Okay.
Since the Big Bang, events were set in motion. The fabric of the universe rippled. And like dominoes falling forward along a set path, from dinosaurs to D-Day to the discovery of DNA, it was my destiny to cover the subject I'm covering today.
Okay.
That's right, I'm covering the existential subject of determinism. Now, Madison, how much do you know about determinism?
Very little. I've only known the small little tidbits that you have shared in anticipation for this episode.
Cool. Well, to give a simple definition, determinism is the doctrine that all events, including human action, are ultimately determined by causes external to the will. Some philosophers have taken determinism to imply that individual human beings have no free will and cannot be held morally responsible for their actions.
Okay.
That's a rough idea for a number of reasons. We as people feel like we're moving through the world with agency. We have seemingly random thoughts and choose which to act on. And we're held morally responsible for those actions. If someone came along and told you you're not actually choosing what to do, you wouldn't just be a little irked at the idea, you would feel like it's fundamentally untrue. Of course, I choose what to do. Sure, I'm influenced externally. Everyone is. No one lives in a vacuum. But I'm very capable of choosing things at random. Mm-hmm. If I flip a coin, I'll get heads or tails. That isn't determined beforehand. Right? Is it?
Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum, bum. That leads me into the very first part of my section here. So a few months ago, I watched a video essay by Jacob Geller, who, if you don't know, is one of, if not the best video essayists on YouTube.
Okay.
And his channel primarily covers the intersection between video games and philosophy. In one of his recent videos, he talks about determinism, mentioning a show called Devs. I'd never heard of the show, even though it was fairly high budget and had Nick Offerman in the leading role.
Freaking love Nick Offerman.
Oh, me too. He looks like such a cool guy to have a beer with.
He does. He would make fun of me for not liking beer, but I'm okay with that.
But he'd be good-natured about it.
He would. And I'm here for that.
Yeah, he'd have a wry smile beneath his mustache. Well, you just haven't tried the right beer yet.
Yeah, that's what he would say.
Yeah, but the concept of the show is very out there.
Okay.
So it takes place in modern day at a tech company named Amaya.
You said Devs.
Yep.
Like the dev team.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So the lead character's boyfriend is recruited to a secret division within Amaya. And that secret division is working on a project that has the potential to change the world. In short, they're working on a quantum computer based around a real-life idea that dates back many, many years.
Okay.
The idea is this. If you know the exact state of all particles at one moment, you can predict the entire future and reconstruct the past with perfect accuracy. Basically, if you can 100% understand the state of a particle, you can see how it's being influenced by other particles and how it will influence other particles.
Okay.
From there, you can extrapolate backward and even forward in time. The team in the show is able to do this, viewing past events as well as future ones. So nothing is random. It's the consequence of past events. When I mentioned earlier that a coin flip is random, they address this in the show. The result of the coin flip is determined by factors like the angle at which the coin is tossed, air resistance, and the surface where the coin lands. When you have enough information, you can predict the quote-unquote random result of an unpredictable event with perfect accuracy.
Okay.
It's using big data to see into the future, essentially, and the past. Now, I definitely recommend you check out Devs. It's a great show. It's only 8 episodes. And its premise is actually rooted in concepts that go way back. Way, way, way back.
Way, way, way back.
Way, 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 way back.
I was trying to think of a joke.
I'll give you time. We can wait. We can wait.
I'm not quick. Well, you said it was only 8 episodes, and I was like, they couldn't see the future with that. I hate myself. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no! Oh no!
Dylan's crying. I made him cry.
I'm sobbing.
He's really sad.
So in the oh goodness, in the early 19th century, the French mathematician and physicist Pierre-Simon Laplace proposed the hypothetical Laplace's demon.
Okay.
Have you heard of this thought experiment?
I don't think I... Oh, I fucking hate thought experiments, Dylan.
Have you heard of this?
No, I haven't.
Well, the thought experiment goes like this. A little something like this. If there was an entity that knew the precise location and momentum of every atom in the universe, it could know the past and predict the future with absolute certainty. Going back even farther in time, the pre-Socratic Greek philosopher Democritus claimed that everything in the universe was composed of atoms moving within a void, and that their interactions are governed by the laws of cause and effect. So this idea is very, very old. It's older than Socrates, even. Okay.
How old is Socrates?
Holy shit, I don't even know. I think 400, 600 BC.
I was going to say, he's BC for sure.
Yeah, definitely
that's
BC.
a long time. Over 2,000 years.
Yeah. So what are we to make of this idea? Well, within the frame of cause and effect, we're essentially one long chain of effect. Cause and effect becomes the same thing. An effect causes the next effect, and so on.
Okay.
This phenomenon is literally as old as time. I don't want to bring up time because I know that it...
As old as time.
Keep going.
I don't know the words.
Because of this, the correct understanding of the universe is deterministic.
Okay.
There is no such thing as free will.
Okay.
According to this idea. Which is supported by science, but we're going to get into that.
Okay.
So here's a hypothetical.
Okay.
You take a walk on a warm summer day. As you walk, you get thirsty and stop by a Wawa. You choose a bottle of Dasani water and leave. At first glance, you seem like decisions you actively made. You chose to take a walk. You chose to stop at Wawa. You chose to pick Dasani water. But let's rewind and look at what led to those choices. You took a walk because the nice weather triggered a desire to enjoy the outdoors. Your preference for walking in nice weather is shaped by past experiences and your innate tendencies. You stopped at Wawa because you felt thirsty. Thirst is a biological response, not a conscious choice. Wawa was the closest or most convenient stop along your route, determined by your location and surroundings. You picked Dasani water because it's familiar to you. Your preference for this brand stems from past experiences, maybe because it's what you grew up drinking, and you associate it with reliability or comfort. So what appears to be a choice is actually the outcome of preceding causes, biological responses, past experiences, environmental factors, and preferences. Rather than making independent decisions, you're acting in response to a chain of events and influences beyond your control.
Okay.
Obviously, determinism has some weird implications. If our actions are predetermined, how can we be held accountable for what we do?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, Dylan. How can we be held accountable for what we do?
Well, to expand on that idea, we couldn't have acted in any other way. We are completely and totally absolved of guilt. Now, at the same time, our good deeds also don't belong to us. We can't be praised for them. Both the good and the bad were the inevitable result of prior causes. What does this mean for criminal justice, specifically in the realm of true crime?
Yeah.
Well, my first instinct was to rear back a little. Obviously, we need to hold criminals responsible for their actions. They aren't just automatically absolved of guilt. I think punishment is important because it also serves as a deterrent. Mm-hmm. But anyway, there's actually kind of a sweet little way of dealing with things if we're being deterministic.
Tell me.
Well, instead of punishing criminals based on their actions, the focus is then placed on the factors that influence their actions.
Well, that I agree with.
Yeah.
That is... Okay.
Yeah, we want to prevent those actions.
Yes.
It's more preventative than reactive. We move away from delivering punishment and toward rehabilitation.
Okay.
We address the environment that resulted in the crime. And I don't know about you, but that sounds like a far better system.
It does. It really does.
Still, I do feel like, punishment is necessary, but it's also necessary to look a little closer at the reasons that directly cause someone to commit a crime.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
For example, if we look at the large majority of serial killers, many of them didn't have a, Norman Rockwell childhood.
Yes.
They're the result of a poor home life, brain trauma, etc. Of course, there are psychopaths who seem destined to do bad things. But research has shown that trauma, exposure to violence during childhood, and environmental conditions are all contributing factors to psychopathy.
Okay.
Reducing those contributing factors would go a long way, I imagine.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We talk a lot about the cycle of abuse. It's a very real thing. A justice system based in determinism would likely affect change more than a justice system that only seeks to dole out punishment.
That I agree with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I'm reducing things a little here, but the idea remains the same.
Yeah.
Still, the science behind determinism is a little more complicated.
Okay.
While determinism had a firm grasp on the world of classical physics, the introduction of quantum mechanics led to fundamental uncertainties.
Okay.
So, uncertainty is not super compatible with determinism. As a quick aside, quantum mechanics is the mathematical study of the motion and interaction of subatomic particles. All right. So.
Okay, I'm good.
What are you writing?
I'm not editing the podcast, so if I don't think of ideas for title now,
yeah,
I get fucked.
What is the title idea?
Wholesale papyrus.
Nice, hell yeah.
Wholesale papyrus. Sorry, go ahead.
All right, so in 1927, Werner Heisenberg rocked the whole game with the uncertainty principle.
Okay.
This principle states that there are fundamental limits to how precisely certain pairs of properties, like position and momentum, can be known simultaneously. The more precisely you know one, the less precisely you can know the other.
Okay.
It isn't just a limitation of measurement either. It's a fundamental property of nature. It implies that even with a complete knowledge of the system, you can't predict the future. And then we have Niels Bohr coming in with the layup, dunking the basketball through the net of probability.
Oh.
Incredible stuff. Truly. Niels Bohr had the interpretation that at the quantum level, particles don't have definite properties like position and momentum. They exist in all possible states. Mm-hmm. The act of measurement itself causes these possibilities to collapse into one specific state. Because of this, the outcome of a quantum event is probabilistic, not deterministic. Right on the buzzer. Crowd cheers, free will is real. Well, hold on to your seat.
Oh, shit.
Because Hugh Everett III busts onto the scene in 1957.
He saw it coming.
I guess so.
Ow!
Oh, did you just hit yourself? That's like the third time in this recording session. I did want to mention it.
It's fine. I've been trying to ignore it. It's fine.
Oh, goodness. So, he came up with the many worlds interpretation, which did the impossible. It combined determinism with a probabilistic universe. According to his interpretation, when a quantum event occurs, all possible outcomes are realized in separate branching universes.
Okay.
In one universe, a particle might be observed in one position, and in another universe, that same particle is observed in a different position.
Okay, so basically he's using determinism and combining it with multiple universe theory.
Yeah.
Okay.
So every possible outcome happens, but in different worlds.
Okay.
That's the idea. So the many worlds interpretation avoids the collapse that I mentioned, allowing for a deterministic universe even if individual outcomes in any single universe appear random. Oh, my heart is racing. So, Madison, with all this information, what's your opinion on free will?
I'm still a freewheeler.
Free Willer.
Free Willard.
Free Willard.
Free Willard.
Man. I see. Yes,
I'm still a Free Willard.
All right.
But I understand the arguments of determinism. And I appreciate... I think I think there's a lot of really great thinking with both, and I think if we shifted to like accept and embrace both of those a little bit more, I think that would lead to a better outcome overall for all of us. Like mentioning, like talking about rehabilitation and like going to the source and like why did this happen. I think all of those are very great, valid, 100% yes things.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's tie this up. Is the universe deterministic? I would say yes, to the extent that we're the outcome of the events that came before us.
Okay. I would say. That I agree with.
Yeah.
I do.
So there's no action we can take that hasn't been influenced in some shape or form.
By who we are and what we've experienced.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the same time, we feel like we have free will. You know, we feel like we have control. It's a part of our lived experience, so why does it matter what the science says? Right? To some extent.
Right. Yeah.
At least that's how I like to think. So I think there's a healthy and even beautiful way of incorporating determinism into our lives.
Okay.
So using a metaphor, I don't think a raindrop sliding down a window pane is any less special because it follows a set path. Its course is altered by its speed, the angle of the glass, and the surrounding droplets, but that doesn't diminish it. Aww. Instead, I think it's important to respect and show a certain amount of reverence to the complicated cause and effect that governs our lives.
Yeah.
You can always let the idea of determinism depress you. You might feel like it's taking away your agency. Or you can appreciate the unity of the universe, the incredible impact you have on the world, and the fact that everything really does happen for a reason.
Aww. That was really nice.
Sources are Devs, Jacob Geller, Very Well Health, and of course, Wikipedia.
I thought you were going to say Dylan.
No.
For the first sources. Dylan.
Yeah.
What are your... I mean, I love that. I love that idea. I really do. I agree to the extent that you agree with it. I agree that what we do is a result of what we've experienced. And even like looking at like the I think what gets me the most with it is like thinking about the justice system, and like it's really hard for me to wrap my brain around the idea that like the very formative determinism basic idea that like, oh, that was going to happen anyway, you know? But I do understand, and I agree with the fact that like if somebody grows up in a bad environment, of course they're going to be more likely to do bad things if they see like this trauma and they experience this, you know, like that's what they've known, that's what they're comfortable with, that's what they think is normal. And so like that is, like you said, a huge result of crime that we do have.
Right.
So to say that it was always going to happen, I always want to like hold out hope that it won't, but I think to kind of go off of that, something needs to happen to change that course then. Right. So in that instance, I would kind of agree.
Yeah. I think it's definitely interesting to think about.
Did that make any sense, what I said?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. I also think that it's important, and this, I don't know if this perspective is all that popular, but the truths that we accept into our lives should serve us.
Yeah.
We should, even if something is true, we don't need to necessarily integrate it into our perspective. Like, for example, somebody who really feels like they value a non-deterministic universe and they value their control and agency, even if determinism is like in a universe where determinism is inarguably true, it would be healthier for them and their own peace of mind, their own wellness, to not integrate that truth into their perspective.
Okay.
Even if it's true, it doesn't make it useful.
Okay.
And I think that
makes sense.
Yeah, I think that
that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that it's important to adopt the things that are useful
to you.
Things that make you happy, things that fulfill you.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily turning a blind eye to the truths of the universe. It's just being selective with what you give your attention to.
Yeah, and what you put your energy into.
Yeah. I think the whole rise of like the doomer ideal, like the doomer mindset, is that people are letting things that don't serve them into their lives and destroy them.
I agree.
Emotionally and spiritually. And if fewer people did that, the world would be a better place.
I agree with that. I do. Thank you, Dylan.
Absolutely, Madison.
I love that. I feel like I don't know enough about the topic to take a firm stand, but you did a very good job in educating me. I don't know. I like all the last things that you said to like really wrap it up and tie it in a bow. I like and I appreciate and I agree with. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, that was a joy to write and to read.
It was a joy to hear in my ear holes.
So glad. And I had a blast writing it, and it was a lot of fun to talk about.
I know you're excited to share it. So I'm excited that you finally got to.
Thank you for giving me this platform.
Of course, anytime.
And I think that just about wraps things up.
I think so too. I hope you guys enjoyed this week. If you didn't, that's fine.
That's actually fine.
It's really fine.
It's fine. Just don't bring it up. It's fine.
Freaking fine, guys. Okay. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at ME Crisis Podcast. You can email us at myexistentialcrisispodcast@gmail.com if you want to send us any topic ideas. You can DM us. We don't give a shit. Do whatever you'd like.
Yeah.
Follow Dylan at Marblefolk.
Yes, at Marblefolk. I am doing a series of cryptid art drawings.
Yes. Guys, actually, go to Dylan.
Go to me.
Go to Dylan. He is doing a whole digital cryptid art gallery thing, and it's so good. You should see the squonk.
I did the squonk. I did the Thunderbird. I did the Wendigo.
You're doing Mothman next, right?
I did Sasquatch, and I'm doing Mothman at the moment.
They're really, really good, guys. You should definitely check it out if you haven't already, and I will link it in the thing.
Thank you. That's very kind.
Absolutely. But yeah.
All right,
thanks,
folks.
Dylan. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Madison.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye.